Favors has it. Outlets to Jefferson. Touches it ahead of Hayward. He jams it and gets pushed from behind by Conley into the basketball standard. Hayward is all right. He'll make the shot and get the foul.
That was against Memphis in March, your random Jazz highlight of the day. 6 days till media day, but I saw Gordon Hayward for the first time yesterday. We'll talk about that, plus other items on today's edition of Tip Off. Pow! How are you? Welcome to Tip Off. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. So glad to talk with you today and be with you. So thank you very much. Whatever it is you may be tuning in, whether it's on your run, your first thing in the morning, if you're catching us live, if you're catching it a week old, it's a fabulous part of this feature of this podcast world. So glad that you've taken the time to tune in today. What do we got coming up for you on the show? Lots from yesterday. We'll talk a little Rudy Gobert, some Gordon Hayward, some observations of yesterday, what the Jazz organization is doing right now, who I sat down with yesterday, an interesting positive comment from an ESPN.com guy on the Jazz, plus a new signing. Plus we'll look at, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. Point guard ratings, some rookie ratings if we get to it. Superstars working on new deals, people killing Kevin McHale, owners killing their own players, lots of stuff out there. I'll try to get to all of it right now, so let's get it rolling. But let me first remind you, you can go to utahjazz.com and get mini plan packs right now. 7 game packs. There's also superstar packs. I personally think the 7-game pack, I've told you what I would do. If I was a season ticket, I am a season ticket holder, but if I didn't buy the whole season ticket, I probably should do this anyway, it'd be smarter for me. I would buy the Superstar Pack 2, and then I would buy 4 games of 7, which I can bring my family. So I have 2 kids, so that would be a 4-game pack. But I'm a little busy during games, so it doesn't work that way. Instead, I buy season tickets that everybody else uses for me. All right, let's get to it. Rudy Gobert back in town. He just looks mammoth. He just looks great. It's just open gym, but it was interesting. At one point, Trevor Booker was next to him, and he just makes Trevor Booker look like Trey Burke. Rudy's just mammoth. And I thought he just looks different. He's playing with a confidence and a strut. And I'm going to see if this makes sense to you. I think Rudy Gobert is going to be hard for Quinn Snyder to keep off the floor this year until Rudy Gobert takes himself off the floor. And what I mean by this is Rudy's potential every night, his impact on a game every night. There was a bounce pass in traffic he caught below his knees. I mean, if he can start doing that stuff, it's a totally different player than we've ever seen before. There was even another one where he grabbed a rebound and just got raked across the arms, fought through it, and finished. Well, if he can do that, then it doesn't matter. He can't shoot free throws. So and one of Quinn's big things is building a wall defensively. If he gets back and runs the floor like he always does and builds that wall, it's huge. So when you watch him, I think it's going to be hard for Quinn to keep him off the floor. The thing is, at this point in Rudy's career, in his second year in the NBA, he'll take himself off the floor. He'll get in foul trouble. He'll screw up some offensive possessions. He'll miss a bunch of free throws. He'll do stuff that gets himself taken off the floor. And what we're going to see is a year from now, he's not going to take himself off the floor. Or maybe 2 years from now, he's not going to take himself off the floor. Or maybe, but at some point, he's going to be, I'm convinced of it, Roy Hibbert, Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan, defense types. The one area I think he's less good than we're giving him credit, but maybe he's taken, is rebounding in traffic. And I got to watch that. Last year, he was so tall that when he got bounced around he couldn't board. I want to see him get hit with 2 hands up and still grab a rebound. That would be a big one for me to watch if I could see that in a scrimmage or in training camp or in preseason. That's one to watch for him. But right now, he's going to be on the floor. You can't keep him off the floor. I'm not willing to go. I saw Ben Dowsett. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Nice kid, nice guy. I've actually been trying to connect with him on some things, and I've been negligent on actually doing that. But nonetheless, he wrote a nice piece about best case, worst case scenarios for the Jazz, and the purpose was best case, right? So I understand, but his best case was Rudy Gobert 30 minutes a night. I'm not maybe. Uh, quite truthfully, I don't see that as any scenario. That's bigger than what I'm talking about. But not a year from now, it's not. If that makes sense. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Now, there's some things to it, like can Favors and Gobert play together? Well, you got to have three really awesome shooters on the floor if you can do it. We don't have three awesome shooters on the roster. So then the next question is, okay, can Gobert and Favors play together enough to muck up the game for 5 minutes? Right? So you might start Cantor and Favors, and then your first sub is Gobert. Frankly, then Gobert and Trevor would probably be somewhat okay, and Gobert and Novak could be great together. Because Gobert covers up Novak's defense, and Novak stretches the floor so Gobert can run the pick and roll. Just fundamentally, I mean, there's great. Let me rephrase that. We're not winning titles with that, but it's a neat combo. But can Gobert and Favors muck up a game? Can you just go muck up a game for 5 minutes at a time? I think there's that's something Jerry was great at. Jerry, when he had those really good teams, would put some lineups out there to muck the game up. With some of our less good teams, he'd win games with the bench. But right now, our starters aren't probably good enough to win games, and so our bench mucking up a game with the bench is a weird thing to try to do. But I wonder if you can do that for 3 to 5 minutes a game. Let me remind everybody something that we'll talk a lot more about this year, and that is if you don't start together, groups barely play together at all. Starting five is really, really important because they're the one group that plays 12 to 18 minutes together a night. But if you go grab most box scores and you go look at 5-man lineups that played that night, most of them play 3-4 minutes together at the most if they didn't start. At the most. Crazy amount. That's a lot. So, when I say, I don't know what that lineup is, it's mucking up the game, and I'm not even sure that if you do it, that Favors and Gobert end up on the floor together for 5 minutes, I guess is my point. The ball's really moving. Scrimmage yesterday, the ball's really moving in open gym scrimmage, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's going to be something we talk about all week long next week in training camp, is the ball's going to move. Again, there's going to be some rough moments. Yesterday, I talked about November games. Hey, the game in Charlotte on the 20th of December could be rough, right? It's going to take a while, and when teams knock us off of what we're doing and then the ball stands still and we get out of it a little bit, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. First sight of Gordon Hayward, the only thing I noticed on that was just, and Gordon probably will tell me he's always done this, and I don't know who was against. I probably should have caught that. There's a bunch of non-roster invitees and some other guys around, David Stockton, for example. But there were 2 times where Gordon drove and then took the step into the defender and got him pinned on the back of his shoulder. And then he actually didn't finish on one of them. I don't remember what happened on the other. But it was something I'm not sure. That's going to contact a little bit more than I've ever seen before. That's he's now wider and stronger and bigger and being able to use that strength to be able to get to the rim a little bit differently than I've seen before. Hey, these are all 1-second observations in a open gym setting. I'm probably overstretching them, but it's all we got, and it's what you want. So, but I thought that was a worthwhile note, that there was this little step in, and he suddenly did something a little differently. Jazz organizationally right now have everybody in town, every scout, every person, and it's cool. I mean, you kind of wonder what happens behind the scenes in these organizations. This is what happens. Like right now, every single scout from every spot across the country, Walt Perrin, Dave Fredman, are leading these groups. Dennis Lindsay and Justin Zanuck, and they're all, they all have people they report to, and so therefore they're all in town doing their brain trust stuff right now. No, they will not let me into those meetings, but they should. I should be allowed to go to those. I sat down yesterday with Ian Clark. Gosh, he's a wonderful kid. And Steve Novak. These are great. These are good people. In a day and age where we're dealing with Adrian Peterson and Ray Rice and a bunch of garbage. Boy, this is a good group of kids. Sure, I'm sure we're not immune to the reality of the world and the fact that things could go wrong. I would be stunned by if some of our guys were involved in that, but so I don't want to say that we're immune to it, but certainly really neat. Novak's funny. He's a witty, funny guy. And I'll have those interviews for you throughout training camp. That one's got to do some editing because we just went back and forth on some funny stuff. But And Ian is such a nice young man. So it was just, again, pleasurable sitting down with these guys and getting to know them a little bit, and hopefully you'll get to know them through these interviews. Amin Alhassan, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. Took a try at it. Had an interesting piece about the Jazz young core. He said, I'm optimistic about the talented youth of the Jazz. He said Favors turned in his best offensive season. His defense suffered as a result. Part of that can be attributed to a young team with many defensive liabilities playing a meaningless season. I think it was more of a lack of defensive structure. That's how you end up 30th in the NBA, is we just didn't have defensive keys and concepts, and so there weren't Favors' weakness, which is his length. He's not tall enough, got exploited rather than his strength, which would be his mobility and his athleticism. And hopefully we can change that this year. Hayward suffered a horrendous shooting season, he wrote. Much of that can be attributed to too heavy an offensive burden placed on him in a contract year. Thanks to Charlotte, Hayward received a max deal. The hope is the new coach, Quinn Snyder, will create a more egalitarian offensive environment that's less reliant on Hayward creating shots for himself and others. That, to me, is the most interesting aspect of Quinn's offense that I'm interested to talk to Quinn about, which is, most people, who, what, when, where, how. Who's getting the ball? How are they getting it? Where are they getting it? Who, what, when, where, how, right? So the what doesn't really per se, but who's getting it? Where are they getting it on the floor? When are they getting it in the offensive possession? And how is it getting there? That's the old school version of what an offense was. If you think about Jerry Sloan, there was no doubt on those things. This is much more the new school, free flow offense. I don't know where the ball ends up each time. And I think that's going to be the really curious aspect to me of how the possessions move. And also, the other one that's just got to be talked about is, and I've talked about it a ton, but early shot clock possessions, if you can get a few of those a night, and we play at altitude. The idea that we were playing a slow pace when we play at altitude is insane. You just can't do that at altitude. We got to run for no other reason than where we play. Right? We get our lungs can handle it, theirs can't. You got to run. You almost should run recklessly for the first 5 minutes of the first and third quarters just to play the altitude. It's a huge advantage. There's only 2 teams in the NBA that have a home court advantage, despite all the bull crap you read otherwise. It's Denver and Utah. And there's 2 reasons we get teams on bad back-to-backs and we play at altitude. Run! You run. You grab 1 or 2 easier shots a night. You go from shooting 44 to 47% too. It's a big deal for guys. I think you'll see a lot of Alec coast to coast. A lot of Alec coast to coast this year. Go! Alec, the only thing that's mean is Alec likes the middle of the floor. Quinn wants the wings. If Alec's got to be beat, Quinn likes the middle of the floor too. Then Amin continued and said, he just mentioned Exum and he mentioned Gobert. So, side notes, law reports around the Dante Jones has been signed. That's not official yet. I don't think he's been through his physical. But he would give us a veteran, defensive, tough wing player that's really kind of a nice guy to have off the bench if Carrick Felix turns out to not be able to be consistent and Torrey Murray turns out to not be able to shoot at all. That's probably a good thing to have. It makes a lot of sense, at least from that sense. And David Stockton was kind of a cool story. He was around. He just plays the game right. I mean, no surprise, right? But he does look like the school child that you pulled off the side of the road to fit in because you were 1 short. It doesn't. He doesn't look as though he necessarily belongs on that level. I have not. I'm doing this live now because I forgot to check. Wait, did I just see that Watch ESPN is now on Chromecast? Oh, that is awesome. That's the best news of the day. Seriously, did I just see an ad on ESPN.com that said that Watch ESPN is on Chromecast? Oh, that's so good. I wish I could take Chromecast. Has anybody tried to take Chromecast on the road into a hotel? Because that'd be really cool. All right, let me just quickly check NBA rank because I forgot. Ryan Kelly's at 281. I don't think we would have Luke Ridenour's at 285. Where is he now? He's in Orlando as the backup. Tony Roten, Nate Wolters. I didn't expect we'd have anybody here for a while, so I forgot to check. Dennis Schroeder. Remember, everybody loved him. We'll see how he ever plays out. Nope, we didn't have anybody. And I think my guess on the next NBA ranked name is going to be Dante Exum, and I don't see high-level rookies coming yet, unless Trevor Booker sneaks in here. But I don't see, Kevin Seraphin just came in at 295, who's probably somewhat similar to Trevor Booker. So I don't see Jason Maxiel. So Trevor might be in the next group here before Dante Exum, for all I know. What were some of the other notes I had for you today? They did a point guard ranking on Sporting News. It's one of those damn slideshows. I'm not sure I loved it. Sean does decent work, but I thought it was interesting. Dragic 4th, Lillard 7th, Wall 8th. So John Wall's pretty good to be the 8th best in the NBA at a position. Kyrie Irving, by the way, I just want to remind everybody, is 22 years old. 22 years old. The other one, NBA.com, Scott Howard Cooper, longtime NBA guy, good friend of mine actually, wrote up a little piece and did rookie rankings. He had Dante Exum as the number 2 point guard. I got to tell you, I'm going to be honest, I don't expect that. I don't expect a big year from Dante Exum. I expect a get your feet wet, figure this thing out, make a lot of mistakes, figure out what you can and can't do, begin to understand how incredibly difficult it is to play in this league, which he has no idea, and then see what happens. But I don't suspect a big year from Dante. I don't expect a Rookie of the Year candidate. I don't suspect him starting at any point all year. I don't expect him winning a lot of games for us. I don't expect, not because I don't think he's good, just because of where he's come from. I don't expect him to be the number 2 point guard. They have Orlando Magic. Peyton is number 1. Maybe there's not another. Who does Scott have as the 3rd point guard? Marcus Smart, I would suspect, has a better year than Dante Exum. I think he's probably more ready. And then, for sure, then you're into Russ Smith and Shabazz Napier. Rodney Hood came in as the 4th shooting guard. I still think Rodney Hood's going to play small forward for us. Maybe not. I don't know who our backup 2 is, so maybe we're just going to divide it. And, that's where suddenly there isn't a lot of time out there, or there aren't a lot of guys out there, so maybe Dante gets more minutes than I'm talking about. But I just think it's going to be a slow development, and if somewhere along the way one thing kind of derails him, a little nick or a little this or a little that along the way, it's going to set him back more than most people just because of how little he's played. How about the story that Dirk Nowitzki's working on a quicker release? How good are you to just be continually working and adding things to your game? Just awesome. All right, I want to get to some questions, so I'm going to save some things for tomorrow that I have here. They look like Miguel's online. He's got a bunch of questions, and some other people have asked some questions as well. So let me see what we can get to today on your questions. Love the interaction. Bigger audience live than we've had in a little while, so it's cool. How much of Open Gym is different from what happens at training camp? It's awesome to hear about the guys and Quinn getting into it already. So stoked. I mean, Open Gym is totally voluntary, and there's non-roster invitees around, so it's really different than training camp in that sense, but you're all out on the floor together, and you're trying to play at least structured in the sense that you're not just playing pickup. You're probably playing with a little less freedom, a little more freedom than you would under a totally coached system, but you're also trying, hey, these guys understand that this is valuable time, so they're trying to play the way Quinn wants them to play, and I think that's as important. So, yeah, it's great. It's fabulous for a young team like this to get ahead of the game, and training camp's got such little time and so many collective bargaining agreement restrictions on it. So this is really valuable. It's more important just to tells you how engaged our guys are and how important it is to them. Memo signing had me come back to this. How much of Sloan is still involved with the Jazz? These questions come to mind as I listened to yesterday's tip-off. Sorry if I'm jumping all over. Sloan and Phil have been at Open Gyms watching at different days and different times. Jerry and Quinn have kind of really built a relationship. I think this is a funny story. I hope it's all right if I tell it, but there was Quinn wanted to invite Jerry to something, and so Quinn asked somebody, hey, how do I reach Jerry? and I hope Quinn doesn't mind me telling this story. And uh, and Quinn said, and the guy, whoever it was, I don't know who it was giving Quinn the number, said, you just text him, but he doesn't text back. He'll get it, but he doesn't text back. So Quinn texts him, and like immediately the text came back from Jerry, which is pretty funny because everyone's like, well, he doesn't text back. Quinn's like, oh, I got a text back. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, how'd you get a text back? But so they've built a nice little relationship. They get along very well. You see them talking a lot. So Jerry and, Quinn's a bright guy. He understands the value of really smart people being around, and has taken the time to get to know Jerry a little bit. So it's cool. So Jerry's around, Phil's around. Quinn's got his way of doing things. He's a visionary. He's going to do things his own way, but he's obviously going to talk to people and see if he picks up a little nugget here or there. From Forrest Scott, how long is a player like Kyle Korver or Ray Allen valuable to a team? As long as they shoot 45% from three and can guard a little, they're really valuable because you always have to guard them. I mean, I think Ray can play till he's 50 if you want to. He's just got to want to. If you had been a player in the NBA, which team would you play for and why? I would play for the Utah Jazz because I would have a clause in my contract that said I could ski during the season. I would ski on off days. They would never let me do that. What is your projected starting five at the end of the season? So last game of the year? I think it's the same, unless somebody gets hurt. So Trey, Alec, Gordon, Ennis, Derek would be my guess. I don't think Gobert works himself into the starting lineup. I think that's the same. I would say same. I think I answered the question about Dante Jones. Somebody told me I'm awesome, which I appreciate. Thank you, Stephen. Is Cantor playing an open gym or is he limited? I don't know if he's been cleared yet. I don't know what his status is. So sorry, that's beyond my pay grade, baby. All right. That is tip off today. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you tomorrow. Hope you have a great day and be safe.